Throughout my life, people have recognized my attractiveness, but I never tried to take advantage of it. In my younger years, I dreamed of becoming a model, but that desire faded when Marco came into my life. He told me that they didn't need the money, so he didn't want me to pursue that path. At that moment, his choice became my decision. Now, at 42, I live in the home of the man who changed the direction of my life, sharing the space with his son from his first marriage, Nico, who is 23. He just finished his studies in photography and visual arts and has returned home. His room is on the upper floor of the duplex, a private space where he works. He creates portraits of women and men, of any kind of person. Young girls often come and go, posing for his artwork. Initially, I thought it was all about his passion for art. But everything shifted the day I accidentally left his door ajar. I couldn't have foreseen that a simple sketch of me would lead to all this. Let me explain how that one evening with Nico became something far more than just helping him. I know you might judge me for this, but I can no longer hide it. That morning, Marco had left the house. I went upstairs, and Nico's door was slightly open. I didn't mean to go in, but as I passed, I caught sight of the canvas inside. What I saw stopped me in my tracks. It was a portrait of me, but what disturbed me even more was the large photo attached to the wall. It was a picture I had posted on social media years ago. Every detail of my face, the depth of my gaze, and the emotions I had at that time were captured in his artwork. I had no idea Nico had observed me so closely. When I realized he had downloaded my photo and printed it to create the portrait, I should have been scared, right? But I wasn't. I stood frozen at the door for a while, my heart racing, filled with excitement and an indescribable feeling. The way he portrayed me was different, stronger, more captivating. Nico had shown me as more than I saw myself. My hands shook as I touched the edge of the doorframe. I couldn't stay there any longer, so I quietly turned and went downstairs. My steps led me to the kitchen, but my heart kept racing. The image of that painting stayed with me. I thought it would just be another artwork, but I was wrong. I never expected that moment to turn into what it did. Remember to subscribe and activate notifications for more stories like this. Once you hear the full story, I'm sure you'll want to leave a comment. Since Nico returned home, there's been an undeniable connection between us, an inexplicable force. At first, everything seemed normal, even comfortable, but I noticed Nico's gradual withdrawal. He started spending more time upstairs, locked in his room, working for long hours. His door was often shut, but the other day, it was left slightly open for a short while. That moment is forever etched in my mind. He had painted me. He took one of my photos from social media and turned it into a painting. Each brushstroke seemed to reveal something about me. He wasn't just painting my face. He was illuminating my soul. Seeing that painting sparked something within me, but I couldn't talk to Nico about it. The next day, loud noises from upstairs caught my attention. A girl was shouting, her voice sharp and furious. Before I could figure out what was going on, the door to Nico's room swung open, and the girl stormed out, face flushed with anger, tears streaming down her cheeks as she hurried past me in the hallway. My heart raced, and I thought about going upstairs, torn between staying out of it and wanting to understand what had happened. In the end, I couldn't stop myself. I walked to Nico's door and knocked lightly. "Nico?" I said, my voice uncertain. A sigh came from within. "Come in," he said, his voice tired. I opened the door and stepped inside. He was standing in the middle of the room, staring at a canvas. The painting was incomplete, but the colors and details were stunning, though the overall composition seemed unfinished. "What's going on?" I asked, unable to hide the worry in my voice. Nico lowered his head and slowly turned to face me. His eyes held a deep sense of helplessness. "That portrait," he said, his voice tinged with resignation. "I got a commission for it, a big project. The client wants a portrait of a strong, elegant, and attractive woman. They offered a lot of money, but it's not just about the money. Judith, this is about my reputation. This project could elevate my career. But when I painted that girl's portrait, I realized it wasn't going to work. He wouldn't have liked it. I would have let him down." His voice shook. "What now?" I asked. "I need to submit something new by tomorrow. It's crucial." Hearing his words, my heart began to race. His gaze was fixed on mine, silently pleading. I thought about the painting I had seen earlier and how Nico had looked at me. "Nico, what do you need from me?" I asked, my voice trembling. He gulped, then took a deep breath. "Judith, I want to paint you. You represent strength, grace, and beauty." I paused, unsure how to reply. "Is that so?" I murmured. Nico stepped closer, his gaze full of determination and respect. "Judith, you may not realize it, but it's you. Your beauty, grace, and strength are in you. I need your help to finish this. I don't have much time, and I need you. If you agree, we can do it quietly, together." A part of me was urging me to refuse immediately, but another part was drawn to Nico's words, the warmth in his eyes, the sincerity in his voice. I couldn't stop thinking about the painting, how he saw me, and the feelings it stirred inside me. "Nico, are you sure?" I asked, locking eyes with him. "Yes," he replied with unwavering certainty, his voice quiet but firm. "This isn't just a painting, Judith. This will change everything." There was a pause. My heart raced as I considered whether I should go through with it. Then my eyes landed on the dress Nico was holding. It was a black silk gown, fitted to the body, exposing the shoulders and falling gracefully to reveal just enough leg. "That's a bit much," I said, letting out a nervous laugh. Nico took a step closer, his gaze warm and confident. "It will look perfect on you. I just want to see you at your best. Trust me, Judith." I took a deep breath, my hesitation fading in response to his genuine words. I nodded slightly, ready to proceed. Nico's smile, sincere and inviting, eased all my doubts. At that moment, we began, waiting for the night to arrive. But I knew instinctively that this would be about more than just art. That evening felt like it would change everything for both of us. When Marco returned, I did my best to make everything seem normal. I kept quiet at dinner, and Nico acted like nothing was wrong. But whenever our eyes met, even briefly, the unspoken tension between us hung heavily in the air. After I confirmed that Marco had fallen asleep, I took a deep breath, my heart pounding as I quietly made my way upstairs to Nico's room. I gently opened the door. The room was bathed in a soft, pleasant light, candles casting a warm glow throughout. Gentle music played in the background, adding to the cozy atmosphere. Nico stood in the corner, holding a bottle of wine. He raised his glass toward me. "Welcome," he said, his voice calm but full of warmth. I looked around at the setup. "This is beautifully done," I remarked. "Tonight is important," he said, a subtle smile on his lips. "Everything must be perfect for you." I struggled to swallow, but a small smile appeared on my lips. At that moment, rather than questioning my actions, I chose to embrace the present. Nico pointed to the corner of the room. "I have prepared a place for you to get ready. Your dress is over there." I nodded and walked toward the corner, noticing from the corner of my eye that Nico had turned his gaze away from me. That small action helped ease some of my nervousness. I put on the dress and looked at my reflection in the mirror. The black silk fitted my figure flawlessly, exposing my shoulders and highlighting the elegance of my collarbone. "Nico, I'm ready," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. He turned, and his gaze locked on me with admiration, not the kind an artist holds for a subject, but more like the admiration a man has for a woman. "Excellent," he said, raising his glass again. "Can you sit in that chair?" I walked over to the chair he indicated. It was sophisticated, reminiscent of an older era, with a charm that complemented the atmosphere. As I sat down, a mix of excitement and nervousness filled me. Nico poured a glass of wine and handed it to me. "You should relax tonight. The wine will help," he said. I took a sip, our eyes meeting once again. "I must avoid drinking too much, or I'll become too relaxed," I replied with a soft smile. Nico chuckled, pulling his chair closer to the easel. "You deserve this. Tonight is all about you. Your presence will complete this painting." The room was filled with stillness as Nico's gaze moved between me and the canvas, his brushstrokes deliberate. I knew I should look away, but I couldn't. I sipped my wine and continued watching him. "Isn't it hard to work this way?" I asked, my tone a mix of curiosity and politeness. "Hard?" he replied with a slight laugh. "On the contrary, this feels like the most real experience I've ever had." He paused for a moment, lowering his brush and gazing directly into my eyes. "Judith, are you aware? It goes beyond aesthetics. I've never met anyone who combines both grace and strength like you." His words left me speechless. "Nico, you're exaggerating," I murmured. But as soon as I spoke, I felt the weight of his words. "I'm not exaggerating," he said, his gaze unwavering. "I'm truly fortunate to share this moment with someone like you. Creating your likeness is more than just work for me. It's a way to understand you." The tension in the room grew almost tangible. He resumed painting, though his strokes became slower, and his eyes flickered between me and the canvas. "The night is just beginning," he said with a subtle smile. "Once this painting is done, everything will change forever." I took another sip of wine and finally understood what he meant. This evening was not just about creating a portrait. It was destined to change us both. While sitting in the chair, I lost track of time. Nico worked before the canvas, each brushstroke representing a piece of his essence. Occasionally, he would stop and glance at me. In his eyes, I saw more than artistic admiration. It was a man's respect. As I sipped my wine, I felt myself becoming more relaxed. Nico would pause about every half hour, and during each break, we exchanged a few words. His eyes would study me, but there was always a boundary he didn't cross. By the second break, that boundary began to disappear. Whether it was the wine or the tension between us, I couldn't tell. But when he gently took my hand, I froze. "Judith, you look exquisite," he said softly. I remained still for a moment, allowing the feeling of his fingers on mine to settle in. During the third break, the line between us almost vanished. Nico reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from my shoulder. "Judith," he said, his gaze fixed on mine, "this painting may not capture your magnificence, but I will try." The contact and his words brought us closer with each break, yet we stayed on the edge, never fully crossing it. 3 hours passed, and when the night ended, Nico finished the last stroke and leaned back, letting out a deep sigh. "It's done," he said, his eyes shining with excitement. "Are you ready?" I stood up, finishing the last sip of my wine. Though I was a little tipsy, my mind was clear. My heart pounded as I walked toward him. When I saw the painting, my breath caught. "This," I whispered, unable to look away from the artwork. "It's incredible, Nico." The figure in the painting was me. Nico hadn't just captured my physical appearance. He had grasped something deeper. The emotions in my eyes, the elegance of my posture, the strength I hadn't realized I had. It was all there on the canvas. "You're remarkable, Judith," he said, looking at me. "This isn't just a portrait of you, it is you. Your beauty, your strength, everything that makes you who you are." At that moment, I could no longer hold back my emotions. I moved toward him and wrapped my arms around his neck. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice trembling. The embrace started out innocent, but when Nico wrapped his arms around my waist and leaned closer, something shifted inside me. It was as if all the barriers between us disappeared. Our breaths mingled, and the flickering candlelight made everything feel even more intense. I began to speak, but my words faded when I realized his lips were only a breath away from mine. There was no turning back now. He spoke my name, his voice low and full of emotion. "I need to tell you something I can't keep hidden anymore," he said, pausing to breathe deeply. "I care for you. It's more than infatuation. I've had these feelings for a long time, but I couldn't admit it until now." His words washed over me, stirring something inside. "Nico, I began, but in that instant, I realized I felt the same way. It was undeniable. Nico moved closer, and our faces were inches apart. His hands gently rested on my waist. "Since the moment we met, I've seen you like this, Judith. You must understand." With that, he slowly leaned in, and our lips met. The moment our lips touched, everything else disappeared. His kiss was warm, and the heat from his body melted any remaining distance between us. After the kiss, he gazed into my eyes, and the connection between us was undeniable. There was no turning back now. I reached for the straps of my dress and slowly slid them down my shoulders. The silk fell to the floor, pooling around my feet, leaving me exposed in the candlelight. Nico's eyes grew darker with admiration. He was silent now, and words weren't needed. His hands moved to my waist, pulling me closer to the couch. That night, everything changed. The connection between us, the intimacy, it was no longer something we could ignore. I lay on the couch, my heart racing, my breath uneven. Nico gazed at me, a gentle smile on his face. He discarded his clothes and tossed them next to mine, leaving no barriers between us. He leaned toward me, his hand gently resting on my waist, as his lips pressed a passionate kiss to my neck. A shiver ran down my spine, not just from his touch, but from a deep sensation I hadn't felt in a long time. His lips moved from my neck to my shoulder, igniting a burning passion within me. My hands found their way to his back, feeling the tension in his muscles and the heat from his body. Nico's breath was warm on my skin, and with every touch, he pulled me closer. "Judith," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion, "you are more beautiful than I could have ever imagined." Everything intensified, and I felt an exhilarating rush. His lips found mine again, this time with more urgency. My hands tangled in his hair, and I gripped the couch cover with my other hand as the intensity of the moment consumed me. I tried to open my eyes, but my body was no longer in my control. With every kiss, it felt as if electricity flowed through me. Nico's lips traced my neck, and his hands left a warm trail across my skin. I surrendered to him completely, lost in the passion of the moment. His gaze above me was filled with a mixture of awe and longing, his breath quickening as his words trembled. "Is this a dream, Judith?" he whispered. I tried to open my eyes, but couldn't focus. My hands gripped the blanket, tighter with each moment. Nico leaned closer, his lips brushing against my ear as he whispered, "You are the cause of my feelings. I never thought of you like this before." His breath was shallow and uneven. "You are more real than anything else." The shaking intensified as I feared I might lose all composure. Finally, Nico let go of his restraint. This wasn't a dream. It was a reality I hadn't realized I was waiting for. Our story isn't over, though. If you're still with me, there's much more to reveal. Make sure to follow and turn on notifications. There's more to come, and you won't want to miss a detail.